Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Beauty and the Brain, the podcast where we discuss all things aesthetics. I'm your co host, Dr. Chris Croley.
And I'm Jerry Drinkard, family nurse practitioner. Together, Chris and I own Skin Tonic Med Spa that's located here in Pace, Florida. And we try to make everything run seamlessly as we can to all of you guys. But what we're talking about today is some things I think people just get kind of curious about, like what happens, how does it work, like how do we make everything go on. So we're just going to talk a little bit just casually about behind the scenes stuff and things that we do. I hope that when you guys get here, it seems like seamless, calm. If not, let us know because we certainly want to change that because we don't want you to see the chaos that we sometimes live in to make all that happen.
It's really a lot of fun. Clearly, I enjoy it. I've made a whole separate business on just med spa consulting and growth and how you can scale your med spa because I love the business end of it so much. But it takes really a lot of behind the scenes work to try to make it run what like you said, like smoothly. And so we do get asked a lot of times, like, what's the day in your life like? And I think it's really different depending on the week as to what mine and your daily schedules look like and how we coordinate a lot of different things. So we thought we'd just take a podcast to the episode where we kind of talk about what goes on behind the scenes, what we do here in our practice. And like you said, I think it's also a good opportunity to really talk to the patients out there that see us, the clients that see us. And if you're a med spa provider listening to this, I think it's a great opportunity for you to think about how do you reach your audience on a large scale and solicit feedback, because really we want feedback. And we find that sometimes patients are reluctant because they're afraid they'll hurt our feelings or that it's going to somehow offend us. But in reality, we do so much to try to make this a premium experience, a great experience that we want our patients to feel cared for. And if that's not happening for some reason that's not really obvious to us, we want them to share it with us so we can correct it. That's really what you and I want.
Even when it's good, we want better.
Hmm.
I mean, that's our ultimate goal is that it's better than the last visit. And so we started this and it was just like you and I. I mean, that was it.
I don't even think I told you this, but we had on my one of my coaching calls last night. I have a client, and she's out in California, and we talk about retention rates. And retention rates are one of the metrics that we use to see how well we're doing at maintaining our clients. And overall, we know we want that number to be high, but her number is through the roof. It's something that we all should strive for. She has a really high retention rate. And we talked about with the whole group why we think her numbers are so high. And it was very interesting because as we had the discussion, it really reminded me of our early days. So she's a solo provider. She intentionally chooses not to have staff. She said, I don't really want the headache of managing staff, and I want these numbers to work with me running this business, because she is much like you, that she loves her patients and getting to know them and spend time with them. So she books longer appointment times so she can really give them that premium experience. And I was like, yes, the patients love that. If we can do that and we can recreate that feeling, the same thing that we did early on when it was just the two of us, we spent a lot of time with them. And it's harder to do as you scale a practice because then you have other people, and we do have, pressure demand. So things that we have to do for time purposes and to make sure that we're maintaining a profit margin enough that we can pay us our employee salaries and benefits, and that we can continue to bring in new and innovative treatments and get the latest technology. So all of those things, become a little bit of a challenge, but remembering that the highest retention rates are usually from that service. It's from the actual personal connection, and making sure that we're constantly touching base with patients and that we're meeting that mark. I think that's really the key.
Yeah, I think when you are that size and when you do spend that amount of time, you know every single detail. And as you grow, you lose touch of some of those details, but you also you have people that help you so that your patient doesn't lose the contact with you. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find a patient now that says that they were rushed out of here. I hope you would. I hope it'd be really hard. Whether my patient, your patient, Allie's, Julie's, or Rachel's. And so I think that that's one of the things that we've taken, even as we've grown much bigger, is to try to maintain that small business feel for the patients, because I think that's what drives people here. But in doing that, we do lose time that we have to do other things. You'd be hard pressed to find a day that you don't see me at some point during the day with a broom in my hand. And Rachel will say, "Well, I just swept." But it's a habit of mine. I go and I sweep the corners. Or Lindsay, when she was here, she's like, "I can't believe that you're sweeping. I just swept like this morning." And I was a lot of times I'll come up here on Saturdays and, like, clean if I'm in town, and I had stopped.
But that sounds like a little bit of OCD more than something.
I don't know if it's OCD, a little bit of control. I'm not sure what it is, but I think one of the things that we don't take time to do is sit in our own chairs and sit in the areas that the patients are in. And so I was up here, I was sweeping and cleaning the restroom, and my phone rang. It's mom. And so I sat on the toilet to talk to her. Not using the restroom, I just sat there and I thought, God, every time a patient sits down, they see a box of light bulbs. Because on the shelf straight in front of the patient was a box of light bulbs. And I'm like, they don't need to know that we have to change light bulbs here. And so it's little things like that, that, like, there should have been either something pretty there, something informative, or sit in your chair and look and you see a cobweb on a chandelier. And so those are just tiny things that go into, like, doing this on the daily.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot that goes on. So, I mean, you're talking about some of the things that like really going through your patient journey. And I think that's like incredibly important. It's actually one of the first things we do in the group. And one of the groups I'm working with right now, we just went over that last night. And I always say you have to fix that patient journey and every step along the way before you really put lots of money into marketing efforts to get new people in, because it's those little things that make a big difference. And so all of us have some degree of tolerance of minor annoyances. And so if we're going somewhere and we're paying for a premium service and we have to walk a really long ways from the parking lot, or we have to walk through a gravel lot and you have a lot of female patients with heels, little things like that, they may tolerate, they may find it a mild annoyance, but the more of those mild annoyances that add up. So they lay in the chair, they see a cobweb, they are in the lobby and they hear a lot of, personal chatter, or the receptionist doesn't greet them when they come in. They go to check out and you have trouble with the payment system. All of those things add up. And it's a high likelihood, the more of those that occur, that that patient will not complain. It has to be usually something really severe, really you make them angry for an actual complaint. More often than not, they just won't come back to see you. We spend a lot of money and a lot of effort and to thinking about ways to market and get new people in. But it's really important that we take care of the people that are already here, because they're the ones that have chosen to be part of the practice and get treatment in the practice. And so that experience really needs to match what our intentions are. And so the only way we know that is to go through that journey. And so you talked about the physical location. I talk a lot about going through that process. What does it look like when somebody who's never heard of you or your practice, or like of, let's say, Skin and Tonic, what is their first impression when they Google something about, let's say, Dysport near me or sculpture treatments in Pace? If our name comes up, how when they go to interact, what does that look like? How quick does the website load? Does it look clean and professional? Can they find the information they need? Are we capturing that information somehow to nurture them along once they come in? And then from that point, when they interact with it, if they call the practice, what is that experience like? How many people listening to this has called their own practice? And so how annoying is it that if you can't get through to someone right away, it's a long message with automated prompts? Is that an aggravation before they ever get there to even see you? And then, like you said, go through what does it look like when they park in the parking lot, when they walk in the front door? What are the smells? What is the, visual appeal? What is the process? How quick do they get addressed, checked in to a treatment room? And so you need to go through that whole journey all the way through their first exposure and awareness of your practice at all the way through the follow-up to after they've had treatment. How are we like interacting with them in the weeks to come to let them know that we appreciate their business? And it takes a lot of behind the scenes to actually do that. And so like to control some of those aspects and go through it yourself. Um, I'm doing more of the some of the digital things on the back end, but I think it's really important that you have a staff that's aware of all of that because they're your representatives and they are the eyes and ears on the ground and really tell them that you want feedback, you expect feedback because you're going to hear about things a lot quicker that way. And so if you're a business owner, it's important that you listen to your clients, your staff to make sure that that experience is really what you're expecting it to be. Now, we're talking about a premium experience, but there are med spas out there and aesthetic practices that really focus more on kind of like a factory model. Dr. Lana Chuck, I was just at a ad board with her, and she was talking about some of the ones she went to in Korea, and it was quite fascinating. Some of the factory models there. It's like a four-story aesthetic practice, and each story has different things on it. And when you first go in, you interact with an AI simulated device, and it before you ever meet the provider AI does a full analysis and you interact with a salesperson and they have your whole plan like laid out for you by the time the provider comes in and they're much more like the technician just to get the work done. But each of those, providers are seeing upwards of 40 to 50 patients a day. And it's just moving them through and they're doing like stacked treatments, a lot of aggressive treatments at one time. And so there are those models that can be successful. And there may be some patients that actually like that because if they're really into quick in and out. They don't want to socialize all the time. So when I say make the experience match your intentions, that's really what I mean. So if you want to be one of those high volume, low touch point practices, that's fine. But your clients are going to be a little bit different than the ones that come here and expect more of socializing, knowing their life story, kind of listening to them, being their psychologist.
Well, when we talked about, I don't know if it was this, I think maybe last episode, we talked about one of my patients that goes to Korea and different places for treatment. And the last time he was there, got 7 treatments. But one of the things is he's not there all the time. So it 100% depends on the model. A lot of patients that we see monthly. I had one earlier tell me that she'd see me in 2 weeks, so every 2 weeks to 4 weeks, we're seeing a lot of our patients are coming back. But I bet if they had to come in and talk to a robot before they ever saw me, you, or Allie, we probably wouldn't see them again.
Yeah.
And so it depends on the culture of what you set the patient up for. But I also think culture is how our staff are trained, and I think they're oftentimes we don't even think about some of the things we do. And a lot of that, like Trinket, Parker, the makeup artist that's in with us, I think her culture's always kind of been very much the same. It's a model that works really well for some people, and some people, if you're doing those big volumes, you just don't have time for that.
It's interesting because like when we talk about our day to day, what it looks like. I think a lot of people want to know, you know, what do we actually do? And it's funny because when we were on vacation recently, like, I felt really anxious at the end of vacation about coming back and catching up on all the work, but what I felt anxious about was the emails, the numbers, the metrics, the all the different projects that we have going on, and, you actually said that you couldn't wait to get back. You felt a little bit anxious because you hadn't, like, touched base with your patients in a little bit, and we, came right back into, like, teaching and filming. We had some model days, and so we're doing this. So tomorrow will be your first day actually seeing patients in a couple of weeks, and, you're like, "I cannot wait until Wednesday because I just really wanna, like" that's the part you love doing,
Yeah.
and I kinda love the business end of it, but it takes a little bit of all of that, and the patients that I see, don't get me wrong, I love seeing them as well, but I get stressed out when I'm not on top of kinda like the number thing. So, let's talk about what the days look like. So, what does your typical day look like? Not one of the filming days, but let's you go your regular clinical days.
A regular clinical day. So it starts at home. We have like, are we gonna start at home or are we gonna start at the
You
clinic?
start where you want to.
I'm gonna start at home. So, starts at home. We could almost do a full day's of work before we ever get to Skin and Tonic because we have the farm, and so right now, our life on the farm has changed a little, and so we have farm chores before we come to work. Take care of our dogs, get our dogs tidied up. If you're there, always try to have you something to eat if you're coming in from the hospital or to be able to spend a little bit of time with you. And then I get to the clinic and I start my day by thinking where the patients come in. So I typically enter the building in the morning through the front door for that reason. My first stop is the leaf blower. I blow off the parking lot and the front porch and start turning
People are gonna
lights.
hear this, and they're gonna think that all you do is clean.
That is so wrong because I don't, but I
But you talk about sweeping, coming on the weekends to clean, cleaning the bathroom, getting combos, leaf blowing. You talk about it like so I'm just I think it's funny because people are gonna leave and they're gonna think, "My gosh, they can't like, they don't hire cleaners?"
Yeah, well, I could easily. I mean, I'm not the only person that does these things, but I go through the building, I flush every toilet. I be sure, like all the lights and lamps are on, and then
You're killing me because you realize that, like, I like, in my coaching all the time, it's one of the first things I do. It's on so many of my social media channels that the
I know.
things that you can delegate, you need to get rid of right away.
But if I had, that's my coffee.
I know. I get it. I think it's funny. That's why I'm pointing it out.
You sit and have a cup of coffee and like speak briefly to me in the morning, and that prepares me for 9 o'clock. And so I'm at the clinic, I try to be the first person here. It gives me time to get myself up and have my personality ready to go. And I look at my schedule and prepare for the day. So when my first patient walks in, I'm in Jerry mode.
Face, and then you clean your room between patients, and
Clean my room. I have my
he's a
chairs
clean freak if you guys haven't picked up on that.
I
All
have
right.
my chair set up for my first patient tomorrow morning, and I don't look at my schedule past the tomorrow morning.
I'm just giving him a hard time because we all have our kind of our routines. And like, I do think routines are important to kind of recenter us and just settle us and get ready for the day. And I think the more that you are in that kind of routine and that you're doing things that don't require a lot of brain power, it allows you to have your creative energy ready for when you really need it when you see those patients. And so I think that's kind of what it is.
So
It's
he
like,
just said that I do not use brain power.
to well, not when you just turn on a leaf blower or when you're just randomly looking around. I didn't say that. I said you need your brain power for your creativity seeing the patients. But it's interesting because I see you do it at home as well. Like, at night, you won't, like, we literally can have the housekeeper there that day and everything will be perfect and won't sit on the sofa and like be on your computer or your phone. You'll be up doing some sort of organizing or cleaning, moving things around, putting new things on the wall or something like that. But I think it is a way of, like you said, of getting yourself centered. And I think we all need something to do like that. For me, it literally is like looking at my kind of to-do list while I'm having coffee to think, how am I going to organize my day? And I usually do that in the mornings and think, here's the things I need to accomplish during the day that day. And then it comes into the practice, and it's either going to be seeing patients, doing filming, or I'm looking at my travel for that week and where I'm going to be and kind of the goals that I have for the different groups that I'm going to be working with. The thing that I wanted to kind of delve into, so that's, I mean, day to day, I think that's not that shocking. We all have routines and we all kind of fall into it. Your, passion is really with your patients at the bedside and not a lot of distractions. You want to give them plenty of time. But both of us know at the end of the day that it falls on us to make sure that this clinic is financially successful because it's no longer just me and you. So when it was just us, we would think we can work other jobs. If we don't have as much money in the bank, we won't go on a certain trip or we'll, not buy something that week. We could easily do it. But the reality is when you grow and when you scale, all of a sudden you have other people that you're now responsible for. And so it's, you think about those people, their families, you think about the long-term success of your clinic because if we're not good stewards of the clinic now and the way that we're pricing things, marketing things, then we're not going to be able to be in business in the future to do the things that we love doing. That's the bottom line. And so when patients come in and they see some of these, high prices, let's face it, in aesthetics, the treatments are high. I think there's a lot of back end stuff that's not really visible and how much it costs to run an aesthetic practice. And I think that's probably one of the things that I see practices early on make mistakes because they fail or they underestimate what it will take to actually scale and run a practice in terms of their actual operating capital operating expenses. And so I think there's a lot of stress on both of us. We do these other sorts of things to try to give control where we can. So it's like, okay, you can control that leaf blower. I can control my to-do list. I can sit there and put check marks by it all day long. But the reality is, there's a lot of this that's calculated decisions. But if we have a slow month, despite our best marketing efforts, that's little that we can do. We can just try to improve that the following month and try to build in enough cushion that we can survive those slower times. So I think a lot of practices struggle with that, and the patients, we don't want them to feel it or see it. That's the bottom line, is that it takes a lot to run a practice, but to your patients and to your clients, they need to not know any of those stresses. And so whatever routines or habits you do to calm yourself and to deal with those stress, I think that's important. So, obviously people recommend healthy diets and exercise and that sort of stuff. And you and I are not really good at any of that. I love my Hershey's Kisses and Pringles and
Breakfast from McDonald's.
yes, allergic to the gym. So we do exert the control where we can, and we try our best to make sure that the experience here is really phenomenal for our patients.
But I think if either of us could trade and, like, if somebody told you today, like, "I'll buy Skin and Tonic and you don't have to do aesthetics or do any of the training that you're doing now," would you be happy or sad about it?
Actually, I mean, I don't think that's a far-fetched question because we've had offers similar to that. Now, some of the offers had been that we would be tied into working for those individuals for a period of time, but the money was actually quite good. And our discussion was, I don't want to give up. I like the control in my schedule. So that part I really like. I love training and education, and have said many times before, I'd do it for free if we hit the lottery. Like I would not want to give that up. And if it meant giving that up, it would have to be a large, large sum of money. So I'm not saying I would never do it, but it would have to be a lot of money.
I think at some point we probably will. I mean, we'll be old or and we'll wanna do something different, but honestly, like, it's one of those things. If you asked me today if I could go back to college again, the only thing I think I'd do differently is I would do it faster than I would be an NP faster than what I was. But I would like for my career to take the pretty much the same path that it did. I can't think of a lot that I would change career-wise because I took something from every single job that I had, whether it was something good or something that I learned that I didn't wanna do, but it all put me in a place to be able to do exactly what I wanna do, which is now. And I think that, with your love of kind of the background stuff, the stuff that it takes to be able to for me to be able to do what I want to do in Skin and Tonic, you do that on the backside. And I do this stuff on the with the patients that allows you to have some numbers to
And I
fool
think
with
that
on the
that's
back.
I think it's interesting. I think, one of the great things about being in medicine in general, you can reinvent yourself so many different ways. And so when we look at your career, right? I mean, from working in the neuro ICU to hospice, home health, and you end up in aesthetics. And you look at me, I was in anesthesia, critical care, really never even thought about aesthetics. Definitely didn't think about doing a business coaching and consulting business. You say that I always get bored with things after a period of time. I need to reinvent myself. But I think that's the great thing in medicine is we have lots of ways to do that. And in this current version of, me, I was able to basically have a lot of satisfaction and joy from treating patients and teaching clinical procedures. And I can still do that now on a more limited basis, and I can help more people learn how to grow and scale their med spa. So I'm doing that just in a different level, but I still actually really enjoy the clinical part of it, just not at the same volume that you have. And we say all the time, you see from a volume standpoint, way more patients than I see.
But from a time standpoint, if you have like, you take a lot of time with the patients that
Yeah, I love that. So the ones that the patients that I see now and treat, I love spending time with them. That's still something that I really like to get to know them and really design it. For a while, when you were in school and we had to make things work, I was much more efficient. So I was focused on volume, and we would do super busy days where we just cram a bunch of patients in, and I would see them all. And at the end of that day, it was not just exhausting because of like how many I had to see, but, mentally, it was exhausting, and I didn't feel really satisfied because I didn't get to spend the time that I wanted with each of them. I felt like I had to move. And so that is the nice thing now is that we're able to have a practice that we've designed where we don't pressure really any of the providers. We do have time markers. It's not like because of appointments. And so, our estheticians can't take 3 hours for a microneedling that would normally be a 45-minute procedure because we have other patients coming in. But we try to make every appointment more than what a usual time is so that our providers don't feel rushed and the patients get that experience. So, anyway, it's been a fun one to talk about. We could talk about experiences in a day in the life. We should get some of those little, what are the glasses, the meta glasses, and kind of wear them and get Danny to splice them all together and do it like a day in the life of all of us, and see how many times through the glasses we captured you with a broom in your hand.
We should see it. A broom or dust rag.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in for another episode of Beauty in the Brain. We look forward to seeing you next week.
We'll see you soon.